Hey there, today I have for you the Willumsen Copenhagen Red E bar lock knife. I have the gray G10 with the stone-washed 14C28N blade. Let's go ahead and get started with some measurements. As I'm getting this set up, just to say this is actually going to be a full review. I've been caring for this for about a month and a half. So I do have some opinions, conclusions. For the blade length, say a little over 2.5 from the point to the foremost point on the frame, maybe 2.6. Overall length, just about 6.5. Let's go for pocketable size. Call that about 4 inches. Let's go ahead and get a thickness measurement. Make sure I'm zeroed out. About 0.6. Let's get a weight. This one's a little beefy. .4.32 approximately ounces. Alrighty, now for some size comparisons. So let's start with kind of the standard fare. We have a paramilitary 2. And a para 3. And then let's do some other bar lock styles. We have a Vostede Raccoon with the 3.2-inch blade. We have a Vostede Mini Nightshade. And then while we're at it, just for fun, we'll throw in a classic. Let's go with a 940. All right, probably good for size comparisons. Since this is a crossbar lock, I'll just do a quick action comparison. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you have to open this differently in a sec, but it is on the lighter side. I would say it's probably less than, well, either of the Vostedes. More on par with the Hogue Ritter Mini RSK. So lighter on the tension, but still, you know, standard crossbar. It's not super weak. But I'll talk about opening it in a little bit. First, let's talk about just the physical appearance and features. So like I said, this is the stone-washed 14C28N. It has a little bit of billboarding. You know, there's the 14C. What I do have to say, and this is probably this, in my opinion, the standout feature of this knife, is the nicely milled G10. So as you can see, this does have kind of like this radial sweeps coming out, giving it these different peaks and valleys. And because it's a layered G10, even though this looks painted on in the pictures, this is actually different linear layers across that as it cuts in, because it has a curve, gives you this nice looking pattern on both sides. So this is actually probably some of the nicest. I really like this. This is a nice, almost fluted. Really nice for under $100. They got this for about 75 bucks. And I would call this grippy, but not like aggressively grippy, not like the stock RSK, not something that's going to chew up your pockets, but something that's going to feel reasonably secure in your hands. Again, I'll talk about opening it in a little bit. Moving on. So, the pocket clip, deep carry. So it actually comes with 2 pocket clips. The one that shipped with attached actually said red E in big letters here. I'm not that big of a fan of billboarding when it's just sticking out of my pocket, so I swapped it out. But what's interesting is the screw to hold on the pocket clip is on the other side of the knife. So if you undo this kind of long barrel screw here, the pocket clip slides out the back. So if you want to swap it out or flip sides, it is, as you can see, relatively easy. Moving along. So they are full-length liners here, full-length metal liners. They are milled a bit, but it's still kind of beefy. As you saw the weight, I think a lot of that mass is probably this very thick, kind of aggressive backspacer here. The whole thing feels very, very solid and weighty. There is milling on the inside. It's just not, I don't think, not quite enough to offset it. Moving along. So this looks like it has screw holes on both sides of the pivot. One of the sides is secured with, a D-shaped pivot. So even though it looks like it's a free floating, it is secured. So you can just loosen the one side and you can go ahead and take it apart and clean it up. This one I've went ahead, I always do this when I get a new one with bearings. Take it apart, clean it out, throw some KPL in there, see how much cleans up the action. Yeah. So moving along. How do I like using it? So this has been kind of a aggressive user for me in the past month and a half. I like to get stacks of double corrugated cardboard that's glued together, groceries, different stuff, and those plastic banded cardboard, and then just seeing how aggressively I can cut and feel confident while doing it. I have to say that this is probably, for a knife in this size category, probably the most secure feeling in the hand. It's got really nice jimping on top, really nice jimping up here in the front choil. So when you get into this choked up position, everything feels secure. Like you've got all this, the not texturing, but the milling here, you've got the jimping there. Like this is not going anywhere, man. I do a really, really hard cut. I don't worry about security at all. And because of the way this is, because of where my finger's at, I don't actually jump into this finger groove here with the cardboard and stop the cut. It stays in the blade and it keeps going pretty well. Handle draw cuts fairly nicely as well. The only thing I'll say is this knife is clearly manufactured to be held like this. You're gonna be up there in this choil. Technically, yes, you could use it like this. With this flat back here, you could wrap your pinky around the back. I have never used the knife like this. I'm never gonna use the knife like this. It is just so comfortable up here. For this size of blade, the grip itself feels really large. This feels like it's a grip from a bigger knife, even though, as you can see, it isn't like a tiny blade on a giant handle. It's just set up very well for large hands. Now, I have 2XL hands when I'm wearing gloves, and really this feels like a nice, comfortable size for me. So that being said, yeah, it's been a good cutter. I've used it kind of aggressively in the garage, held up pretty well. The only large caveat is, and as you've seen me, I've failed opening this a few times now, even though I've been using it a bunch, you cannot do your standard kind of up flick to open it. So let's pull out a couple other crossbar locks here. Raccoon, doesn't really matter how you flick it. It flicks open, flick up. In the RSK, flick up. A Yipper, flip up. All of these, the thumb studs, doesn't really matter where you flick from, as long as you're moving from the blade, you get it nice and open. This one though, if you go up, your finger slams into this little piece right here. And this is a nicely secured piece. It's not soft or anything. That's the liners on both sides and the G10. What happens is you go and you catch that edge and the knife just kind of stops. It doesn't want to open. So if I'm carrying it and I'm using it a bunch, my brain eventually flips over and I'm able to do an outside flick to try to catch it and open it. As you can see, wow, I'm feeling it right now. So once you get used to it, as you can see, kind of got to use an outside flick to get it. But if they ever designed another version, they ever did an improvement or a Red E, version 2, just a little bit of material remove right here. Maybe even just bring it into right around there to make it so a easier flip to get this out and working would, I think, definitely improve the relative usability of this. Because this is a good grip. I don't think it needs quite that much material to still have a good finger placement, but it would allow a lot easier flick. As I failed a couple times. But alrighty, yeah, that's my summary of the Willumsen Copenhagen Red E bar lock knife. Thanks for watching.